Vendors are getting smarter and more security conscious, right? Which makes our job as security researchers harder, but that's the fun in it, right? It's like this arms race between defenders and hackers, right?
We need to show this to the world. I think we're talking about these type of drones, right?
So you have a DJI Mini 4
right?
Pro.
This is
Nice.
yeah.
There you go.
Can I own this thing?
We were invited to participate in the inaugural NATO Ukraine Defense Innovators Forum in Krakow, Poland. When I first started, it was unthinkable to come out of college with like a six-figure salary. Now that's the new norm, especially for security researchers and security engineers.
You might know this one as well.
Let's see. I might just have that as well. Look at that.
I knew it.
Great minds think alike.
Hello and welcome everyone to the first episode of Mobile Hacking Lab podcast. I'm thrilled to kick things off with an incredible special guest today, one of the brightest minds that I had the pleasure of meeting in the world of cybersecurity. And not only has she developed the Android Security Research Playbook, but she's also quite involved in Drone Wolf Security Playbook by Dark Wolf Solutions. It's a true honor to welcome Hahna Latonick from Dark Wolf Solutions. Thank you for joining us, Hana.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So this is the first episode. I'm very excited to have you here. And we had quite some interaction already prior to this podcast. Of course, you were actually one of the first ones who passed the exam within Mobile Hacking Lab. That was also very exciting, especially to see that it was someone that was not a man, to be honest. Like usually it's very quickly. Yeah, it's actually very excited to see that. And to be fairly honest, you nailed it also compared to a lot of male. So that's a very great win.
No, happy to serve as a trailblazer. So
you also helped us to fix up a lot of stuff. So yeah, thanks a lot for that.
Absolutely.
So before we continue, I think it's a good idea to introduce you to the audience, if you don't mind. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I'm Hahna Latonick. I currently serve as the Director of Security Research for Dark Wolf Solutions. It's a technology firm that offers cybersecurity, software DevSecOps, and digital transformation services for federal and commercial organizations. I joined Dark Wolf back in February 2023, but I've been working across the defense industry for the past 18 years, specializing in both offensive and defensive cyber for the Department of Defense and several defense contracting companies. My expertise is in reverse engineering, vulnerability research, exploit development, and machine learning. I've also been featured as a cybersecurity subject matter expert on Fox Business News, ABC, U.S. News World Report, and other national media outlets. I'm quite busy, but I enjoy, teaching offensive security trainings and workshops at premier cybersecurity conferences like Black Hat, DEF CON, CanSec West, Ring Zero, even besides Orlando and Tampa. I'll give them a shout out as well. And I also enjoy competing in capture the flag competitions. This year, our team, we came in third place at the DEF CON RFCTF. We also tied for first place in the 2023 DEF CON IoT CTF. And actually, like my first introduction to DEF CON was back in 2014, where my team and I, we competed in the main stage CTF. So, at the CTF finals, our team, we came in sixth place, ranking the top 1.5% of ethical hackers worldwide. So can't get enough of CTFs. And they're pretty vital too, right? Like in addition to certifications that I have, like I have my CISSP, my CEH, and now, being a certified Android exploit developer through Mobile Hacking Lab, having those certifications are also important as well. And then I'll just wrap up for my intro. I attended also Swarthmore College and Drexel University, where I earned a bachelor's and master's in computer engineering along with a mathematics minor. So it's a little bit about who I am, and I'm really excited to be on the very first podcast episode for Mobile Hacking Lab.
To be honest, it's an honor to have you here. Like, I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. So, I know you were at Black Hat, me too, and we were going to meet there, but it didn't happen for some reason.
Yeah,
but at Black Hat, everyone is busy. Yeah, I think something like that happened, right? We passed by each other, but yeah. Anyways, we'll meet very soon, and we meet quite a lot like this as well. So one other thing that I want to ask, and I think it's a good idea to tell the rest of our audience, is how did you come into cybersecurity? What's your journey? How did that happen? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so it's been an amazing journey as I look back on the years, and when I think back to it, like as a kid, I was always tinkering with computers, whether tearing them apart, rehabbing them. Computers always break, so my dad and I would always try to figure out how to troubleshoot our home computer, and through that. That inspired me to pursue computer engineering in college because I was like, oh, I can actually like study this and just work with computers all the time, which seemed really cool. And through that, I became very interested in network security. So that led to me getting a college internship with a defense contracting company that actually introduced me to defensive cyber, where we were securing computer network infrastructures for different naval fleets. And so essentially we were doing cybersecurity before it was called cybersecurity, right? At the time, it was information assurance. Risk management framework (RMF) wasn't a thing yet, and so I really felt like I was on the bleeding edge of what has now become cybersecurity. But after doing that for about 4 years, realizing that when it comes to defensive cyber, right, you have to be right all the time. You can't be wrong, right? If you hear about data breaches happening all the time, and so with this defensive cyber, if you're wrong once, you kind of get in trouble. It's very frustrating and can be depressing at times. And so when I found out about offensive cyber, where you only have to be right once, right? You just have to find one way in. And when you do, the team, they go out, they celebrate over beer and pizza. So I'm like, how do I get on that team, right? How do I get involved with offensive cyber? And so I got a call from a headhunter one day, and that pretty much introduced me to the offensive cybersecurity world. So with that, I've had the privilege of working for the Department of Defense and different areas within the defense industry. Through that journey, led me into learning more and exploring more of like Android security research, and have been doing that for I think about since 2017 or so. And it's been an amazing roller coaster, right? I would say I've never really planned out what I've done in my career. Just these opportunities kind of presented themselves, and getting more involved with CTFs have really like threw me into the deep end of the ocean. So it's been quite thrilling and miraculous when I look back on it, because I never would have imagined like the career that I've experienced and that I currently have.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting what you're saying is because I think most of us as security people, like hackers, so to say, is we never went into this for something, right? We just did all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, all the opportunities started coming. I recognize that, I did that because of passion for security, of course. So you also said something about Android security research. Of course, I like that stuff as well. And based on what you did during the exam, we knew that you nailed it very quickly. Yeah, I mean that says enough when you say like I started in 2017 looking at mobile security. Do you think, from your point of view, things have been changed in mobile security as well?
Absolutely. Vendors are getting smarter and more security conscious, right? Which makes our job as security researchers harder, but that's the fun in it, right? It's like this arms race between defenders and hackers, right? And so especially on the Android front, Google is doing an amazing job in trying to further secure the Android ecosystem. But even beyond Android, when you think about Microsoft as well, Apple, they're implementing a variety of different security protections at different levels, right? Whether it's user spaced for app security, protecting user data, down to kernel level security, firmware security, even down at the hardware level. It's definitely getting increasingly harder as we go down the stack, right? And I saw earlier this year, Google was trying to implement more from firmware security protections to further boost Android security. And so it's going to continue being a fun ride, but we'll see how these security mechanisms are implemented, how they impact performance, as well as practical usage of mobile devices, but also just what more we can potentially break into and see what types of different effects we can cause, right? So it should be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun world, but also a little bit sometimes, quite hard, right? In the things that we have to bypass and all the new security mitigations that they have been rolling out. It's actually good because it makes the world safer, and no one wants to get their phone pwned or hacked, because
Exactly.
everything is on those devices. And it's no wonder that a lot of countries or actors are actually interested in getting into these mobile devices. It doesn't surprise me, and I guess no one of our audience will surprise that. So you also said about the past, right? I just want to understand, and also for our audience, when was this first moment that you hacked something, right? We all remember these moments that you hacked something and you thought, like, because you went into the offensive security
Uh,
side of things, and I guess you hacked some things. And do you have a story for us to tell, like something very
I
that you
do.
think, like, that was the first? Yeah,
I
okay, yeah.
do, and it still cracks me up to this day, and I'm totally going to date myself, and I'm okay with that. So, uh, I was a kid actually, and I was in third grade. Third grade. This is how far back we're going, and I think this really put me on the path of the career that I had today. But we had these old school Mac desktop computers in our classroom. Um, it might have been like an Apple II or something. And I really wanted to play Oregon Trail, but the computers were locked. And so, of course, we have to like get the teacher to unlock the computers, and the teacher wasn't around for like the recess period. And I was like, "Well, I want to play," and I was like, "I'll just guess what the password is." And I was able to figure out, like back in the day, right? We didn't have like 14, 15 character passwords, right? Probably something
Yeah.
around the range of like 5 to 8 characters. So I just pretty much like brute forced my way in and figured out what the password was, and I was able to play Oregon Trail for that research period. So, but like I didn't think of it as like hacking per se, right? Um, and as a kid, you just don't really think anything of it. I just want to play this video game or a computer PC game. So that's the story that I tell as just a young kid, naive, not really realizing what I just did. But it's a fun story.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun story. I have something to say about that because it's very funny that you're saying that, because not so long ago I was teaching my son about Shodan,
Yeah.
searching for webcams and that kind of stuff. And I asked him, like, hey, can you guess the password? I told him, like, hey, there is this webcam. Can you try to guess the password? He said, but what do you think? I said, "Well, give it a try a couple of times." And it worked for him, like the way you said it, right? He typed in admin, and then he got into the camera, but it scared him because it was just pointed out to an empty chair. And he was so scared that he got into it. Like, but I think these childhood memories of hacking are very essential, because when I look back at my life, I have the same thing as what you're saying, starting very young, and didn't even realize that I was doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't consider it hacking. It was just more of, like you said, like
Mhm.
guessing a password, and I guessed correct, and now I get to play Oregon Trail. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's very cool. So, and but there is a moment that comes into your life when you decided, okay, I want to go into the cybersecurity. I think you said a little bit about that. But at that time, you were in defense first, and I totally agree with what you say. As a defender, these people have a very hard job because you need to protect. The attackers have to find only one way to get in, right? And the defenders have to protect for every pot most of the time. It's a very difficult job for sure, but yeah, both of them help together.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a little bit more actually about the Android Security Research Playbook that you have been authoring, which is actually a pretty cool project. I like Android a lot, so for me to see that is pretty awesome. Can you tell us a bit more about that project?
Yeah, so very proud of the Android Security Research Playbook that we put together, and we wanted to give back to the community because as we were doing our own research, realizing that there was this void. A lot of the tools that we were coming across were either obsolete or no longer maintained. There wasn't a lot of available literature when it comes to like practical Android security research, and so which is understandable. Like within the field that we work within, a lot of it is kept close to our chest, right? No one wants to reveal what they're working on, their techniques, and things like that. Totally get it. But we found that there was a way where we could achieve a win-win, right? Where not only could we um, streamline the process, because everything is like the Android ecosystem is so fragmented with the diversity of Android operating systems, device manufacturers, applications, and so we wanted to have like a central resource that we could provide the community that could serve as like a getting started guide, and help our fellow security researchers facilitate their research, right? Especially if they get stuck. Hey, here's some additional recommendations for each of the different stages that we touch upon. And so when we put this together, we wanted to cover end to end, right? So reconnaissance, static analysis, dynamic analysis, fuzzing, vulnerability discovery. When you find the vulnerabilities, how do you go about bypassing different security protections, as well as recommendations to demonstrate, the types of different effects that you can cause when you exploit those identified vulnerabilities. And we put this all together, released it February earlier this year, and we've been just really amazed by how well received this has been from by the community, and people reaching out to us for additional recommendations, being invited to conferences to talk on it as well. We're here on this podcast discussing it, so it's just been a really great, I would say, product that our team has produced. And something like, usually we're not able to talk much about what we do, but with the
Mhm.
ASRP, as we call it for short, we can point to that and say, hey, we did that, and this is the impact that we've had on the community.
I saw it. You're right, indeed. But I also received it very positively because it was very good. It looked very good. It had all these stages in it, and I totally agree with you that, that this is a little bit of a difficult world, right? Because some people work in this field, like mobile security research, and they do very confidential work, and not everyone is able to speak about everything publicly, which makes it hard because sometimes there's less resources to be found about this topic, which is different than other fields. But the Android research, uh, when we look at the Android Security Research Playbook, it is also a little bit tied somewhat because you guys have also another project, very cool project as well, which is the drone hacking, and I like that as well. I checked everything in there. I was amazed by it. I have a drone here, and I'm pretty much going to deep dive into that because and also some trainings, right? So I'm very curious. Can you tell us a bit more about that, also in relationship with Android, because they are somewhat related as well.
Yeah, so we have our drone Wolf playbook. This was actually created by our sister team, our pen testing team at Dark Wolf Solutions. And we work very closely with a DIU, that's the Defense Innovation Unit, where we perform drone assessments. Essentially, DIU is helping to, through their Blue UAS program, are vetting commercial drones for government use, right? And we are one of the providers of conducting these drone assessments, and then making recommendations to DIU. And so through that same process, right, not much information and literature is out there about drone security, and how to conduct a successful pen test of these types of specialized devices. And so Darkwolf put together the Drone Wolf Playbook, and then that led to the opportunities of offering trainings on, offering a drone hacking workshop at different conferences. Where it's like, for example, last year we were invited by Black Hat to host the Autonomous Arcade. So we had 3 different types of activities. One was like a drone obstacle course where you can learn how to navigate different types of consumer drones. Then we had our drone hacking workshop where we, take you from zero to elite, learning how to hack your first drone, like no prerequisites required. We literally walk you through, holding your hand step by step. And it's all self-paced, right? So people could come and go as they were attending the conference. And so there's like 3 labs for that. One is learning how to hack the drone itself. The second module is hacking the ground control station. That's the remote controller that you use to operate the drone. And then the third lab is hacking the C2 communication link between the drone and the GCS. And so once you went through those 2 activities, we then had a drone CTF where you can combine the skills that you've learned to hack a drone and fly it from point A to point B. So
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, so we offer it at different conferences. We're looking forward to partnering with Ring Zero February next year and offering a 4-day training, because usually it's just about a 2-day workshop. We were just at DEF CON as well, partnering with the Aerospace Village, offering our capture the drone activities, giving drone talks. And so this is another, I would say, artifact that has been well received by the community, and it just keeps continuing to grow, right? And so, how do we tie this back to Android, right? So, first and foremost, Android is open sourced and its operating system is Linux based, which makes it very easy to use and customize for a variety of applications, including drone uses, right? Android, which is crazy to think about this, it has a 71% global market share of mobile operating systems, right? That's almost like 3 out of every 4 mobile device is
Yeah,
Android,
that's crazy.
right? And there's 3 billion Android devices that are in use today, at least. And so we see this trend of there being a lot of smartphone controlled drones that are utilizing Android. Many components for drone system use Android, whether it's the embedded operating system of the drone itself, as well as the ground control station, the remote controller is running on Android, right? So one of the major vendors for drones is DJI, right? Their GCS, that's exactly what you have, right? There, you want to
Yeah,
grab it
give me
real
a
quick?
second. I think we
Yeah,
need.
we'll have a little
Yeah,
show and
I
tell
think we need to
here.
show this. We need to show this to the world. I think we're talking about these type of drones,
So
right?
you have a
As well,
DJI
as
Mini
well,
4
right? This
Pro.
is
Nice. There
yeah.
you go.
Can
Um,
I pound this thing because I'm sick and tired that I have to get approval to fly with this thing. Like I know it has to be, but
yeah. No,
but pretty
it should
cool. Yeah,
that should be a fun project for you to look into. But along those lines, right? The GCS, the DJI's GCS, and mobile apps, they run Android. And when you think about it, like worldwide, DJI makes up at least 70 to 80% of the consumer drone market, as well as at least 50 to 70% of the commercial space. So Android is heavily used throughout the drone industry. We also have like one of the most common applications out there for drones that are using PX4 RG Pilot. That's the firmware and flight controller. The primary app that they use that's out there is Q Ground Control, or QGC. it runs on Android and provides full flight control as well as mission planning for drone operators. So with it being open source as well, it's another reason why it's one of like the major apps that are out there for drone operators. But that again just goes to show like Android isn't going away. We have so many devices running it, so many manufacturers creating their own custom types of Android devices, and so understanding Android security is pretty much imperative. So
Yeah, so this was also the main reason why I stepped into Android. But, I like both mobile, but for example, if I had to make the choice like iOS or Android research right now, of course it was Android for me because of that reason, because of the amount of devices and the different type of devices. I like the drone playbook a lot, as I said previously. And with my drone here, I am very excited to deep dive into that to see. I have so many questions about that thing. Like when I see it flying, and I also like that you guys call it capture the drone. Like it gives it an extra extra element to it. But all of this, because not so long ago, I saw a post from you with a relationship to NATO as well. Like, would you like to share something about that? I think it was something very cool you guys were doing. And since it's a public thing you spoke, maybe you can tell us more here.
yeah, so this was an amazing, like once in a lifetime career opportunity, but also I'd say personal opportunity as well. Where Dark Wolf Solutions, we were invited to participate in the inaugural NATO Ukraine Defense Innovators Forum in Krakow, Poland. Right, never thought in my life I would ever go over to Poland. Right, I'd say the farthest east I've been is like Europe, for example, right? But for it was a 3-day event. It was sponsored by DIU, right, the Defense Innovation Unit, the Poland's Ministry of National Defense, NATO, as well as Brave One, and we were there to serve as judges for a UAS hackathon, where companies and even students from around the world were invited to participate in this 2-day hackathon to develop innovative solutions using representative drone equipment, right? Just imagine having like a 3D printed frame for a drone, throw on there like a Raspberry Pi, for example, and just see what you could create, right? And you know, the drone equipment that they were using is representative of what's being deployed out on the Ukrainian battlefield, right? And so not only that, during the hackathon, the teams also had to demonstrate their solutions during like live flight tests. So being able to be a part of that and really, I would say, reminding me why I got into this, right? I was definitely
Hmm.
affected by September 11th, which is right around the corner, as we're recording this podcast. And that is what inspired me to go into the defense industry. So to be a part of this joint global event over in Poland, um, and the current conflicts that are happening just brought it back to reality of like why we're doing this and the the pursuit for freedom, the importance of not just our own national security but international cooperation in support of international security is why we do what we do. So it was again an amazing experience. There was also panel discussions about the realities of the battlefield, the value of international cooperation, as well as just we're seeing this rapid integration of dual use technologies,
Hmm.
right? And just the operational uses and challenges of UAS and counter UAS capabilities. So I will say, as we hear in the news often now of different types of drone attacks that are happening,
Hmm.
or even just the use of drones for providing disaster relief, right? Delivering medical supplies and important uh, supplies that people need. But it's definitely changing the operations of the battlefield. It's changing how we deliver goods, and is really making us take a step back of, hey, you have, your home drone, right, that you use. I'm sure your kids are going to love playing with it. But just the commercial and military operations of drones today has very quickly evolved in a short period of time.
Yeah, I saw something very cool when I got this drone. Actually, it's pretty awesome. To there's this community where they develop where you can find scripts where you can mask out your identifiers and stuff. They call it CIA mode or something. You just disable and you don't see the. I think the controller or one of these. I'm not so well into that, but it sends out some identifier, right? That it is this drone. But
Yes, usually,
yeah,
just
I
like,
saw some.
yeah, I would say just like with an airplane, for example, right? It's going to emit
Mhm.
like an identifier of who they are, and just some metadata, right, about the aircraft, right, and similar for drones, as well as any other type of aircraft.
Yeah, like I said, there are quite a lot of nice scripts that I saw there. I wasn't able to use them because I didn't. Mine got updated right away when I got it, so I wasn't able to
Yeah.
do all the fun stuff. But I'll be doing it pretty soon. So one thing that I also I like what you said about that you joined this because of a greater good, right? Because you wanted to help against these type of attacks. And I think we are coming into a world where drone attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated and also much easier to perform. I think as a if you would give a kid of 16 years old 2 3 drones and who already has this experience in hacking things, they will change that thing in a deadly weapon for sure. Even a kid can do that. So imagining that then the governments would use AI and that kind of stuff, like that scares me a little bit, to be honest. Like,
Or I would
um,
say, like, that's the thing with cybersecurity, is that it can, with the knowledge and expertise we have, the capabilities that we have, they can be used for good or for bad, right? And it always, and all, as well as like, what's the motive, what's the intention, right? And at the end of the day, um, I'm always going to be on the side of using it for good, and being an advocate of, helping to strengthen our national security, for example. It's very easy to go to the dark side, as we'll say, right?
yeah,
But there's so
mhm.
much good that we can do for the world, and it's much more productive and constructive. And you know, it's just important that we keep that light in front of us as we move forward.
I totally agree with that. And I think this brings me to the next topic in here is that although drone security research, and it's very tied to Android as well, um, we all know, everyone on the internet knows that there are huge prices being paid for mobile security, like exploits for mobile devices. There's a reason for that because they are being used in warfare, of course. What do you think of the world and the mobile security right now?
As you mentioned earlier, we have so much information that we have on our phones, right? In addition to any personal sensitive information that's on our phone, it's easily, tracking where we are, what we're doing, right? You have different applications that are using location based services, right? As we're integrating with different services, right? That data is being shared, right? We also don't know, like, sometimes apps will have very broad permissions with respect to the data that they're collecting. So it's very important to be just mindful of what you have on your phone, and what data you're either directly putting out there, like what you upload to social media, for example, or when it comes to your workouts, like I use Strava, for example, right? And with that, it can upload your different routes of, like, hey, where you were running, where you were biking, etc. And so it's just important to be mindful of what data you're putting out there. what data you're allowing other companies to collect, because again, it can be used for different purposes, whether for data analytics for that company, or even potentially for governments to utilize as a part of potential like intelligence operations, right? So again, just be mindful of how you're using your phone, and when and where as well.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, your whole life is essentially on that thing. And not only yours, but also your family's pictures and everything is on there. It's funny that you're saying about the Strava app, because I think there was an incident not so long ago. Not so long ago, I think it's quite long ago. There was a talk also with someone that I know. He gave a talk as well about it. And he basically showed people indeed in the desert running, round and round, and you could see that it was military bases, but on the map you don't see the military bases. It's that simple, actually. Sometimes, yeah, being mindful of how you use that stuff is very important. One thing, do you think that we all know that TikTok, there was an issue with TikTok, right? And the government wanted to shut it down, say ban TikTok. Do you think it was only because of collecting personal information, or that they might potentially change those app into, because you have essentially code execution already on a device? So if warfare happens between China and thing, they can turn these apps directly into exploiting these devices. This is what I think that might be able to happen.
Yeah,
So what are your thoughts on this?
it's a great question. I will admit, I personally don't use TikTok, right? But I'll say this: with recently, CISA put out guidance on Chinese manufactured UASs, right? And there's a lot of, I would say, evidence with respect to the steps and motions that the Chinese government is taking with respect to data collection, right? And how that is playing a key role into their intelligence operations. Now, we can expand that beyond Chinese manufactured UASs to, let's just say, applications that are developed overseas that are heavily used within the US, right? Um, I'm not here to say that they are or aren't doing this, right? Um, but when you look at the bigger picture, there are some concerns and some red flags with respect to the amount of access foreign companies may have to our data, to our home systems, to our critical infrastructure, where it's important that we take the necessary precautions to protect our national security, right? So again, it goes back
Mhm.
to just being mindful of, everyone loved making their dances at home during COVID, right? And putting out their different reels on TikTok, right? And even Facebook and other platforms. But again, it's just being mindful of how you're utilizing these different applications, how you're interacting with them, what data you're sharing, and as well as, again, the amount of access that you're either explicitly granting or implicitly consenting to, because you just never know what can occur down the road, and how that level of access can be potentially abused or exploited for different uses.
I agree with that, but there's also a double thing on that. Like, aren't other countries doing that as well? Like, that's the interesting thing, right? If we have an app of some other country, they also collect the information. Sometimes I do think that there are some who collect. I don't have evidence that the TikTok or any of these app. I cannot say that directly because I haven't looked into that myself. But what concerns me is that these apps can be turned into like initial foothold into millions of devices, right? Because you just push out another version of it with some extra. You directly have access to mobile devices right now, because I would just think of like how would that happen when like a real world war would happen or something like that. Then all these apps would have to fight and take over the device, like something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
So yeah,
it's rather easy for an innocent or benign application to be quickly turned into a malicious app, right? Or to be um, turned into malware, for example. And again, it goes back to the broad permissions that are granted,
Mhm.
and what data that application and vendor can read, what they can write, what they can execute. Oftentimes, when an update is pushed out, it's just blindly accepted and trusted, right? And
Yeah.
um, sometimes an app can have permissions where things can download and be installed without notification to the user, right? And so it creates this very interesting dynamic, especially from a cybersecurity perspective of, yes, I want to be able to say, use these apps to socialize and connect with people, but how do I do so in a way that doesn't compromise my privacy and security at the same time?
Thanks for sharing that, because I think that everyone should be very aware of how much they allow on their device, because you're right, it can turn into very evil things, and it has happened quite some time already, with some normal apps turning evil in the end. So coming back to the whole Android security research, because mobile security is a very important thing that you guys do as well at Dark Wolf. Do you think, for I think for our audience, because they are people who are interested in mobile security, and I get this question a lot asked, is how is there a lot of ask for security researchers right now? Do you have any ideas about that market?
Absolutely. I say it's it's great job security, right? There's a high demand and low supply. I've been quite involved in mentoring and grooming the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, ethical hackers, security researchers, just because this is continues to be a challenge, right? How do we find um, the right people with the right skill sets, the right experience, and just the right mindset of doing mobile security research, right? It's quite the roller coaster. There's a lot of lows and highs with the research that we conduct. Oftentimes, we're working with new targets, new tools, also creating our own tools to facilitate the process. And it's very easy to give up because the work that we do is very challenging, right? At times, it can feel very discouraging or demoralizing. But what makes it all worth it is when you do find that vulnerability, when you are able to, you know, um, develop and land that proof of concept to demonstrate a certain cyber effect. Um, and again, it's the work that we do is so important. So um, we need more security researchers, not just for Android security research, even on the iOS side and across a variety of different technologies as well. And so that's the great thing of going through like the Android Userland Fuzzing and Exploitation class through Mobile Hacking Lab, is because it takes you from not knowing much about Android, and walks you through the entire process, end to end, with actual like real world applications and exercises. And so by getting into security research, there's always going to be a need for you, a demand, right? Um,
Mhm.
with with COVID and the pandemic, it's opened up opportunities to work remotely, where not just government defense contracting companies asking for security researchers, but also on the commercial side, say with Google, Microsoft, Apple, etc., where commercial companies are utilizing security researchers to secure their products, right? And so having that opportunity to potentially work remotely as well as on site, as well as it can be a quite lucrative career, right? The salaries are very competitive. And again, going back to supply and demand, it's only going to go up from here, right? When I
Yeah.
would say when I first started, it was unthinkable to come out of college with like a six-figure salary. But now that's the new norm, especially for security researchers and security engineers, right? And so it is a career that will just keep on giving. I'll say that. So, um,
Hmm.
and with that, not only do you have great job security and a competitive salary, but it can also like set you up very well for financial independence also. So, highly recommend considering security research as a career.
Thanks. I will come back to the financial independence thing later because I have something else that I saw, but which I want to discuss as well. But what I do you think like selling exploits then? Because we can do security research for good and for bad, right? You can use it for yeah. It depends on which side you are. Obviously, you can use it for good and bad. But
Yeah,
if we look at yeah.
yeah. With I would say, along those lines, bug bounties have become increasingly popular as well, and I would say publicly accepted, especially by companies where they're putting out their own bug bounties, right? So even like on the side, as a hobby or even as an independent security researcher, participating in different bug bounties where you can sell your proof of concept or your exploit to that vendor. You can also sell to different brokers. So you have like ZDI, the Zero Day Initiative, for example. Zerodium is also, very public about their bug bounty program. So, yeah, there's a lot of new options that are out there.
Now we discussed about this mobile security, and I have one more thing to say about that because I don't know if you have seen this article that was published not so long ago. I'm going to create a video about it on our YouTube channel, but uh, Project Zero is doing quite a lot of very good work, right? I think they are doing very amazing work in my opinion, and I learned a lot from reading also their stuff as well. Like I think a lot of the security researchers right now uh, are looking at Project Zero's articles as well. One thing that was interesting about that is that one of the people from the intelligence world started writing a whole paper and saying, "You guys, your security research is good, but you destroyed like years of operations with publishing this." And that is actually quite interesting because, on the other side, if we as hackers, what we usually were doing, finding bugs and just releasing them and publicly so that it was fixed. But now we have this double edged sword, right? It has two sides of it. Do we let them fix it, or is it going to be used by our own countries for the good? Like that's an interesting question that I have for you. Like, what is your thoughts about this?
Yeah, and it's I would say it goes back to another reason why most of the industry usually doesn't talk about their security research, right? Um, and not just for a competitive advantage, but also just there may be sensitivity around the research that they're doing, right? And this is always going to be a challenge, right? Where you have commercial companies that are developing products, right? You have Google overseeing and developing Android. You have Apple and iOS. You have Microsoft with Windows, and it is their priority to make sure that they're putting out secure products, right? And they're releasing patches, putting out security bulletins, and then there's a balance between, okay, if they do have these internal teams, to what degree do they want to publicize their work, like Google's Project Zero, for example. I'll say this: regardless if something is being publicized or not, we always dread Patch Tuesday. We always dread, I think it's now Patch Friday with Chrome, right? Um, Vendors are putting out these patches more frequently. And they may or may not know whether or not that is going to, say, quote unquote, burn a capability, right? Whether,
Mhm.
within the US or overseas. at the end of the day, they have to do their job, right, in putting out a secure product. Because if they don't, then it puts us at risk of, potentially um, attackers exploiting the devices that we use, right? It would be irresponsible. Like, I use an iPhone, and if Apple didn't, put out a patch that affected, their millions of users, we would we would be infuriated with them, right, in public courts. So it's this delicate balance, but I think also the importance of collaboration between industry and government, to ensure that we're all working towards a greater good.
Yeah, I think the hacking world has always been close to the yeah, it has always been very close to the world of intelligence and that kind of stuff. Always like that or to the defense, like because I think if you look back in the past, like the people who were doing real offensive security, I mean the naming red teaming and that comes all from defense, right? Um, yeah, I find it very interesting because yeah, where is the balance, right? Where are we finding the balance? And for me, this is also the reason why we started Mobile Hacking Lab. As you know, for anyone who wants to go into this field, you probably have seen it as well. It's quite hard. Yeah, indeed, people are keeping some of the things for themselves, and then maybe after 5 or 6 years later, some of us will be able to do the same stuff. And this is the reason why we wanted to open that a little bit and make sure that a lot of other people understand how this world works. So, what I also you touched upon the financial independence a little bit, and after looking at some of your just searching a little bit, right, about you as a person as well, not doing OSINT or something, just Hana, and I found a book which is I don't remember the book's title right now. Actually, I forgot it,
It's
but
master your money, stop yearning, start earning. Yeah, I wrote that back in 2015, so coming up on 10 years soon.
it's pretty cool, actually. And when I saw that, I really liked it. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool, actually, because I think you have this entrepreneur kind of mindset. I noticed that a couple of times when we spoke. Can you tell us more about that? And I think we also discussed about being part of the FIRE movement. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I think the audience will probably like that.
Yeah, so back in 2015, pretty much my entire life was just consumed with security research, right? I was doing it for my day job, and then we were competing in CTF. So before work, after work, on the weekends, it was just training and preparing for CTFs, right? So that was like my world. I was just completely immersed in it. And I just realized, okay, I need to do something else, right? It can be challenging when you have a technical hobby and your hobbies are very closely related to your work,
Hmm.
but it's more of like we're just very passionate about what we do. So for us, it's kind of hard to see the difference,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, okay, I want to do something that doesn't involve tech at all. And my mom always encouraged me to write a book. She's like, one day you have to write a book. And I was like, all right. And I was like, well, I can take this opportunity and write a book. Then the question became, well, what do I write about? Right. And so I started thinking of, well, what questions do people often ask me? What type of advice do they approach me for? And at that time, it was really around, student loans. Like, how did I quickly pay off my student loans? How did I get involved with investing? And so I decided, let me just take the financial knowledge that I've gained at that point in time and just put it in a book, right? That way I'm not often repeating myself, and I could just like create this blueprint for young professionals, right? And it took me about 5 to 6 weeks to write the book. I decided to self-publish it, and it went on to become an Amazon #1 bestseller, which was like mind-blowing. Never again, like, it's always great to see the public, like, when you put something out into the world, for it to be well received. And so I highly recommend the audiobook. A fantastic narrator that I hired for it. But um, for me, one thing that I kind of think back to is, during my early years, it's actually during my internship. I was at a company and there were people that were there for like 20, 30 years. And at that point in time,
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be like them. Like, I want to be able to say, I've worked here for like 20, 30 years. And then shortly thereafter, there was like this massive layoff, which was like very unsettling because I was like, oh, am I going to be laid off? And through that moment, it made me realize that it's important to diversify your opportunities, right? To not be solely reliant on, um, I would say, an employer, right? And so through that, I started, learning about, passive income and investing, so that, God forbid, if anything does happen, you have these safety nets, right? And so, and I talk about that in my book as well. And so, through that, I really got involved. I was introduced to the fire movement through like Mr. Money Mustache many years ago, and it still remains to be a goal of mine, right? And
Hmm.
so it's something that I encourage people is like, hey, regardless of what you do, just make sure that you're taking the necessary steps to look out for yourself and your family, and making sure that you're, achieving the financial independence and security that you want for yourself. So, yeah, that's pretty much how it all kind of came about.
Yeah, I like that because I have the same idea about this layoffs and stuff. Sometimes layoffs happen, and you can just be hit by the layoff.
Yeah, and
And
and we're seeing
yeah,
it even, even to this day, right? Especially
mhm.
within big tech, a lot of the major tech companies are having these different waves of layoffs, and so, it's just important that you have, those protections in place, so that God forbid, if someone does end up losing their job, that they're going to be okay moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing anyone can do for themselves. Not to rely on only one thing in your life. Maybe do something on the side for yourself, or that's what I believe in. And investing and saving. So yeah, I heard about the fire movement. Not so, I think a couple of years ago, and I was very. I saw some of the people in that in those fire movements, and they were very young and very ambitious and just amazing people. I was very impressed by them, to be honest. Like especially the young, very young people who had that mindset already. I was just thinking, I wish I had that mindset when I was so young, because to be honest, I was just spending everything. Like there was nothing staying over. Yeah. So let's talk about the because what other books would you advise us? Like because apparently you write books, you probably read books as well.
Yeah, read a lot
So
of
are there
books.
any books you would advise us?
Yeah, so I would say, when it comes to security research, there are, I would say, books that have had a great impact on my career and on my professional development. I actually have a few right here that I'll show.
Nice.
And so the first and foremost, and these are like cornerstones of our industry, right? So we have Hacking, the Art of Exploitation. This book pretty much changed my life. And even though when it first came out, it was focused on like x86 exploitation, it really just sets a strong foundation for getting into this field. Again, it came out several years ago, but it's still quite relevant, especially since there's still.
I read
Yeah, go ahead.
I've read that book. Yeah, I read that book actually, and I have a question for you. Whether you know this one then as well. No, but I read that book, and I think it was one of the better books at that time. And then you might know this one as well.
Let's see. I might just have that as well. Look at that.
I knew it.
Great
I
minds think
knew it.
alike.
It's yeah. This was actually my Bible, to be honest. Like I had no religion. This was my religion at that time. Like
Yeah, the
like
Shellcoder's
reading the
Handbook
code and then just
is I would say definitely you want to get this book, right? When it's, if because you have reverse engineering, you have vulnerability research, and then you have exploit development. And the Shellcoder's Handbook is great for diving more into the exploit development side. When it comes to reversing, another great book I would recommend. Reversing Secrets of Reverse Engineering. This is another key book, and I would say that was great to then transition into practical reverse engineering, because not only do they talk about x86 and x64, but this was great for learning more about ARM, as well as the Windows kernel. So, yeah, I would say between those books, you can't go wrong. And then, of course, before Ghidra came out, the IDA Pro Handbook by No Starch Press was another critical book to have. And of course, now they have the Ghidra book as well. So, between those they're going to set a very strong foundation, and really just will be great references to have throughout your entire career, regardless of when they were published. They're still highly relevant today.
yeah, I totally agree. Even the Shellcoder's Handbook has still some stuff in there which might be useful. Like it's very old, but still very good. Have you also read the Grey Hat Hacking series? Those are also quite good.
Yes, I have the Gray Hat Python book as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this series of Grey Hat Hacking, and then one, two, three, four, five, six. These are also very good. That's my recommendation then while we are speaking. So nowadays we also touched upon this the job, and you said like you need to diversify yourself, and there are actually two things that I want to ask about. That is that when you wanted to switch over to read some other stuff and write a book, and many of us who are in IT security have this mentality that you also said like this is our hobby, and we just get do too much work, right? We start early in the morning and then all the way up, sometimes like no sleep almost, and then continue
It's
trying to
quite the
solve a
grind.
challenge or do something. Yeah, exactly. And but that also comes with a side effect. So did you ever experience such a thing in your life, that because you said like I had to do something else? I personally had a couple of these events in my life. I just wondered, did you had that, and how did you, if you had it, how did you come over it?
Great question. I will say this. One thing that's I try to make non-negotiable is I strive to get 8 hours of sleep every day, because it got to a point where I was essentially just burning myself out. Where I don't want to say for no reason. It's just like being so passionate and excited about the work that we do. And when you are working on hard problems, I would find myself trying to solve them in my sleep, right? It's always
Yeah.
like it's weird to say, but you do end up like dreaming in hex. It
Yes.
you until you experience it. Like again, it sounds weird, but it does happen. where we're developing
No.
concepts in our head while we sleep. So
Yeah,
um,
and even wake up with a solution sometimes. I don't know if you ever had that, but I
absolutely, like
woke up with solutions, like
yeah, middle of the
shockingly. Yeah.
night, and like it's 3 in the morning, and it's like
Yeah.
I got it, and then you just go in,
Yeah.
and then next it's
Yeah.
like 12 p.m. But yeah, so like it's because it's so easy for us to become enthralled with our work. It's I always tell my team like our health and well-being comes first, right? um,
Mhm.
it's important that you're getting 8 hours of sleep so that you have that fresh perspective coming in the next day. Making sure that you're taking breaks, taking time off, spending that with family and friends. And so I know for me, I have to be like I'm trying to be more proactive about that, and making sure that I am turning it off, right? Because it's very easy to be on 24/7,
Yeah.
but also making sure like even just 30 minutes a day, I try to make sure I'm going for a walk, exercising, whether it's, on the treadmill, on the spin bike, going out on the weekends, and cycling. So, also for me, I found to be very effective is like meditation and doing yoga, right?
Hmm.
Because it's very easy, again, working on challenging problems, to get stressed out, to get anxious. And you have that VRRE roller coaster, right? And so through meditation and yoga, it's just helped me to like calm and like center myself, so that I can approach my work, with just a fresh perspective.
Yeah, but you're right. The meditation helped for me as well. I never thought it was going to help me a lot, but I'm very active sometimes, so it helps me to slow down a little bit and then step back. Also, exercising, it was something that changed my life. Um, so I think a lot of people who are new in IT security still have that, right? It's like a rat race sometimes. Like everyone is moving very fast, and you see everyone posting and stuff, and that feels like, oh, I still remember myself that at some point I was just every day. I don't know how many times I was refreshing exploit database to see if new exploits came out
Yeah.
and who wrote them and stuff, who published something, and it was a little bit frustrating sometimes because uh, yeah, you keep on thinking that everyone is moving, and but yeah, the reality is of course differently, and it's very hard to get into that trap. Thinking that the world is moving faster than you do. Like that's what I had actually. What advice would you like to give our audience who want to go into this security research field? What would you advise them? Where to start? What would
Great.
be a good starting point? Yeah.
Great question. Um, so I'll give a variety of different answers, because I imagine there's
Hmm.
different types of listeners, for this podcast
Yeah.
episode, right? So, for example, if you're in college, right, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do for your career, um, I would say, especially if you're interested in computer security, network security, security research, etc., um, get involved with your college's, I would say, cybersecurity club, right? I'm quite active in mentoring the uh, collegiate cyber defense competition clubs on the East Coast. And so I'll give a shout out to University of Central Florida, UCF. Um, but they have like fantastic extracurricular programs to encourage, um, people to, or young students to pursue a career in cybersecurity, right? I'll also recommend, regardless of where you're at in your career and regardless of how old you are, getting involved with CTF competitions, right? There's there's always one happening, somewhere in the world. Likely, it's going to be remote, online, and so just register for one, see what it's all about, check out the different challenges, because that's going to help inform what you like to do and what you don't want to do, right? Like, for example, I really liked doing the binary exploitation challenges, but wasn't really a fan of like doing the web exploitation, for example. So it just, because of the variety of challenges, you can kind of pick and choose what you want, and what you kind of gravitate towards, because that's going to help influence the type of work and type of positions that you might look for. I would also recommend attending cybersecurity conferences, right? B-Sides, for example, has done a great job of having different local chapters, across the U.S., even internationally as well. They're very welcoming of, I
Hmm.
would say, young professionals, experienced professionals, those that are trying to make a career switch or a career transition. And so, great opportunity to get exposed to a variety of different topics, when it comes to
Hmm.
cybersecurity. They have companies attend as sponsors, that you can meet and greet with, pass along your resume, etc. So, whether attending a conference or even volunteering for one, right? There's
Yeah.
so much help that conferences need, and just local events. You would
Hmm.
be surprised at how many people and companies you meet, even just as a volunteer, right? That you might not necessarily have that same chance if you were just applying online, or through a recruiting platform, right? So I would just identify different ways that you can get involved with the community, and then of course, um, I look at it as a self investment in myself, but consider taking a training, right? Whether it's a conference training, whether it's through Mobile Hacking Lab, for example, but the the low cost, it might seem expensive at first, right? But when you look at the grand scheme, um, if you take a training for $1,000 to $5,000, and then that positions you to get a job for 75 to 100K to start out right out the gate, that's a huge return on investment, right? You don't even see that in the stock market, for example. So I always recommend to um, expand your educational opportunities, make those self investments in yourself and in your personal and professional development. And you'll be surprised at how far it takes you, not only just getting into cybersecurity, but also positioning yourself for a very successful career within the field as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, the best investments you can do is investing in yourself, right? That's like investing in skills, investing in new things, because you become better. And even if you do like an interview with a company, you will be one of the better ones because you have like more skills, more things to show. And like trainings are good, but as you also said, like books are actually a very good way of learning new skills, in my opinion. And I would also advise everyone like books. Some people tell me like I don't like to read books. I'm really sorry, but there's a I don't share that opinion, because in my opinion there's a huge benefit of having a thick book.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'll say, especially since people do learn in different ways. In addition to reading, okay, maybe you don't want to read the book, but there's likely going to be an audiobook available, or some sort of narration feature that you can utilize. Also, listening to podcasts just like this one, or watching YouTube videos, and hey, even interacting with new, we'll just say chatbots, for example, with AI is revolutionizing a lot of things, a lot of different applications, right? You can actually learn a lot through ChatGPT when it comes to like security research, and so there's a lot of options out there, and all that matters is getting started. Don't think about, is this the right, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right way to go? Just get started. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you're definitely going to get to where you want to be one way or the other.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's also good to just reach out to people, right? What do you think of that? Like, it should be good to, because one difficulty I had in my past, I don't know if you had that as well, but there were like IT security was not such a big thing. So although we could chat and find some people online, I couldn't find those people that were doing the same stuff that I was doing. Not everyone understood that. Then later on, hacker spaces started becoming more of a thing, and I could find more like-minded people. Um, I think just reaching out to people is just a good thing. Like on LinkedIn, on anywhere, just if you see anyone, don't be scared to reach out. Right? I mean, you can reach out to me, to you, to anyone.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
definitely on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect and reach out. Yeah, I would say if you see people posting on things that you're interested in, like feel free to leave a comment, right? Or DM them and say, "Hey, I saw your post on this. Love to talk to you more about it." Or if you come across one of their talks at a conference, reaching out to them saying, "Hey, loved your talk and or your presentation. Would like to chat a bit more about this." And you'd be surprised at how well received that will be, and how responsive the people that you're reaching out to will respond. So
so one other thing that I really wanted to ask you is that you have been for a while in IT security, and we are all trying to get more women into IT security. How was your experience in being in this world with not so many. I know our community is very great. I haven't seen any other community where we everyone is accepted very easy. Like everyone is accepted, but uh, it was always like only men or
Yeah,
something, right?
predominantly
With a
men.
lot of
Yeah,
other fields.
and
Yeah,
and it
exactly.
still
So
is,
how?
right? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mhm. No, I mean, what would you advise like those women who want to go into IT security, and what would you advise them?
Yeah, so I mean, the field is still predominantly male, but great strides have been made to encourage, women and underrepresented groups to explore I would say, the degrees that are related to our field, such as engineering, computer science, etc., and then exploring more of cybersecurity, STEM fields as a career, right? What I would recommend is having a mentor is very important, and having a community of support is also important, right? We have the Diana Initiative, which is a great conference to attend. It's right before, usually it's like the day before Black Hat. We also have the Grace Hopper Conference, which is huge. I think it's actually going to be in Philadelphia later this year. But I would identify, and then of course you have like Society of Women Engineers, SWE, for example. So I would just identify different groups, different conferences that are focused on empowering women and underrepresented groups to get involved, right? Because that's going to serve as another resource that you can reach out to, that you can seek out for additional support. And I would say like the mentors throughout my career, both men and women, have been critical to my success. And without them, I don't know, how far I would have made it in my career. But they definitely have played a key role. So thank you to all my mentors out there that might be listening. But yeah, I would recommend just identifying mentors in a community to have by your side as you move forward throughout your career.
That's amazing. Thanks for the tip. I think a lot of people will like that. And also, you moved from a very technical job, right? You told us all this technical work that you're doing. You still do a lot of technical work based on what I have seen from you.
Yeah, still day to day.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so but you are also the director, right? So you have a management role and stuff. How did you move into that? Like, because that's also some career path that a lot of people are interested in. So how did that evolve,
Great,
becoming a leader?
great question. So here's a tip, right? Um, so I often, when I look back on my career, um, I've often took on things that people didn't want to do, right? So, for example, um, usually as like an engineer or security researcher, you want to stay on the keyboard. You want to be down in the weeds of things. And an opportunity came up to serve as a group leader, right? Pretty much as like a supervisor, first line manager. Usually that involves like doing performance reviews, time cards. And usually engineers just don't want to do that. And I was like, hey, I'll do it. Why not? Right. I want to like see
Mhm.
what a supervisor role would entail. Right. Still serving as like a technical lead, but my time is a bit split between technical work and managerial activities. And then from there, have an opportunity to serve as a deputy engineering manager of overseeing a department of it was like a multidisciplinary department, but going from a supervisor to now like into an engineering managing role, and then through that evolved into um, becoming a director, where it's like, hey, here's an opportunity to stand up a new portfolio, right? And set the vision, the strategy, the direction of how we proceed in executing this portfolio. So through that, I've been exposed to a variety of different things, whether it's learning more about business development, learning more about proposal writing, as well as establishing roadmaps that are then translated into technical programs. But I would say it's I look at every opportunity as a way to grow, even if it's not like even if it's adjacent or tangential to the work that I'm doing, right? So um, rather than saying no, I just look at it as like, how can I grow from this role? Because I know I'm not going to be in it for the rest of my life, right? So what can I take away with it
Yeah.
and position me for a future opportunity as well? So it's been an amazing journey. I would say in my current role, I really appreciate um, how much my senior leadership team has empowered me to have the authority and the ownership and the autonomy to create our offensive cyber operations portfolio, running with that. So I'm very grateful for the role and responsibilities that I have, and of course, I'm responsible for a team as well, making sure that they have work. But it's been an amazing journey, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. I know, but have you ever had this feeling that when you became, because you still do technical work, but have you come into this feeling sometimes like, I want to do full time? Like sometimes, because I worked as a manager also for a while, and in the beginning, you get this mixed feeling. Like you think, maybe I should do more technical work, or what did I deliver by the end of the day? Because I was just talking the whole day, like arranging
I was just
things. Like
on
it's
Zoom
very,
all day. Yeah. Like,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
different thing than delivering a report or coming up with a finding that you have. Like it's a different thing. It's a total mindset change
Yeah.
sometimes.
I would say for me, it's just an evolution where technology is always going to be at the core of what I do because I feel
Hmm.
like that's where my
Yeah,
expertise is in, and that's where I can add the greatest value as far as how can we leverage technology to help our customers achieve their mission? How can we leverage technologies to do things better, faster, cheaper? Um, how can we use technology to be even more effective and efficient, right? And so I think for me, the evolution that I'm seeing is that there's there's the technical execution, right? Engineers being on the keyboard, and then there's the technical planning, right? More of the project management, program management, product management, but essentially like how do we just plan and manage that technical execution. But then there's also technical strategy, and that's what I see myself gravitating more
yeah,
towards. It's the strategy side of again, how can we use technology to grow the business, right? So for
yeah.
me, that's what I would say, getting even more excited about, right? Because that technical strategy is going to influence how we manage and execute towards that plan, so that vision. So, um, yeah, like even though as my career progresses, it's just a natural evolution to like I don't have to be the one on the keyboard developing the proof of concept, right? But it's important for me to stay abreast of how the field is changing, what new tools and technologies are coming out, and just staying on top of those current events so that we can still maintain and gain a competitive advantage with our different like business opportunities. So for me, I feel like that's just the entrepreneurial mindset that I have.
Exactly.
Being a natural leader, being, I feel like back in 2016 when I was running a startup teaching kids how to code. I took that red pill like in the Matrix, and I've never looked back. Right. So just having that opportunity within Dark Wolf to create and grow these new opportunities to move the company forward has just been just really exciting. So I'm just enjoying the ride, and happy to see the impact that we're having, and first and foremost ensuring that our customers can achieve their mission.
Yeah, it's actually very nice that you said that, because indeed you become like some sort of entrepreneur in a company itself, right? When you
Exactly.
become like this, because you have to come with a new vision. And prior to starting Mobile Hacking Lab, of course, I had a lot of experience running programs, and like, of course, finding books is a nice thing to do, and it was like a hobby thing as well, right? Always as a kid doing that kind of stuff. But later on, right now, I think I feel what you just said, right? Because at some point you feel like, oh, this is also pretty nice that I can roll out a larger program that has such a big impact, where maybe thousands of findings are going to be found, not only one, and
Exactly.
protecting an organization in a wider, yeah. And it's actually very cool to hear that from you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a fun ride, and I would say feeling like an entrepreneur within a company, of being able to oversee our innovations, and taking those ideas, seeing them come into fruition, is just very, very rewarding. But also, it's
Yeah.
like it's completely different when you are doing it on your own, right? Where
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have as many resources, whether it's staffing, whether it's financial resources, as well as just connections and the networks within the industry. So yeah, for me, like I don't take it for granted. I definitely look at it as a privilege, because not many people get to experience that for the companies that they work for. And I'm just love what I do, love who I work with, and we're just doing awesome things. So
Yeah, if you have like an awesome team and awesome people around you, things go automatically. You'll produce awesome things. That's
exactly.
how it works. Okay, so Hannah, we touched upon a lot of stuff, and it was very exciting to speak with you about this. But I think probably a lot of people are now very interested to get in touch with you. Maybe there are some other companies who might want to get in touch with you. How can they get in touch with you, and what type of services do you guys deliver that they can contact you for?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, definitely check out our website at darkwolfsolutions.com. On there, we list our job openings. We just graduated from being a small business at the end of 2023. So we are growing significantly. So definitely check out our different job postings on our website and join the pack. Also on there, there's our contact page, where if you're a company looking for, if you have a need for cybersecurity, software DevSecOps, or digital transformation services, please contact us at info@darkwolfsolutions.com. You can also reach me at hana.latonick at darkwolfsolutions.com. We'll make sure to provide all these links for you as well for this podcast. In addition, you can check out, if you're interested in learning more about our Android Security Research Playbook, you can go to asrp.darkwolf.io. As well as if you're interested in our Drone Wolf Playbook, you can go to dronewolf.darkwolf.io as well. In addition, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to connect and DM me. We can go from there as well.
Thank you very much, Hannah. So we'll put all the links in the description below, that's for sure. Before we end, I also noticed one other thing, is that you guys had something with Google ongoing. What was that about? Can you tell me a little bit about it? Because it was quite an exciting thing.
Yes. So, in addition to the federal customers that we support, we also have great industry partnerships as well. One of them being with Google. We're a part of their professional services organization, or Google PSO. And as a Google partner, we helped to meet our customers' missions through the use of delivering Google products and services. And so we were actually voted as, or selected as, the 2024 Google Partner of the Year for the Department of Defense. Also, we were invited to participate in one of their Gen AI chat hacking competitions. And so through that, we actually won their most recent Gen AI chat hack event, and so we're very very proud of that. But we have a very healthy and productive relationship with Google. So looking forward to partnering with them more in different ways. And again, that's just one of the industry partnerships that we have. So it's great that our portfolio is quite diverse with both government contracts, but also with commercial opportunities as well.
So I think joining the Dark Wolf would be a very interesting job, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have
That's
we
what I
have way
can
too
see
much fun
from you.
here.
And before because we reached the end of the podcast, and I want to ask you one other thing, maybe, which is how much important, because as a manager, you also know that influencing leadership, influencing people with your ideas, and with that, we all know it's very important to be speaking publicly and be everywhere. Right now, you are on this podcast. How important is it for anyone? Because what is your opinion on this, to be more visible on the internet and posting about your stuff, the work you do? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, right? It's I would say it's not necessarily required, but there's many benefits to doing so, right? For an individual or for a company, we all have our own brand, right?
Mhm.
And it's important of how you present yourself, and the impact that you're having, right? So when you do have the opportunity to share about the work and impact that you're having, take advantage of that, right? For me, early in my career, I didn't have that opportunity, right? The work that I was doing for the Department of Defense was very sensitive. And so we just did not talk about it, right? All I could say was I did cool stuff with cool people. And that's all I can say, right? The joke is I'll have to take you out back to tell you more, right? But um,
I heard that so many times, that one.
exactly.
When
So
you ask too much questions, they say, if I tell you, you will have to disappear. Yeah.
and so yeah, when you do have the opportunity to be public with your work, even to the community service that you're doing, it's very important, right? So as say an individual, if you're looking for a job, um, having a LinkedIn profile is important. Being mindful of what you're posting about is just be mindful, right? Because
Yeah.
even employers are doing background checks and things of that nature. So it's be mindful of your brand and how you present yourself. Same thing for a company as well. So I know for me, um, as I've explored different career opportunities throughout my career, the one thing that really attracted me to Dark Wolf was I just saw how much they were involved in posting on LinkedIn. And I was like, they seem to always be having fun. They're always doing cool things, right? So as a part of my OSINT in researching the company, I check out their social media. I check out what they're putting out, how they're in the news, etc. And that was one of the I would say no brainers of joining Dark Wolf. But one thing I also view as important is that it provides the opportunity to serve as a thought leader, right? To position yourself as a subject matter expert. So whether it's talking on a podcast, presenting at a conference, filming a YouTube video, for example, they can be leveraged in different ways to promote your expertise, your leadership, as well as your brand. So if you have the opportunity to do it, I would strongly consider it.
Yeah, I think just in general, sharing knowledge, like stuff you do and projects that you have, it's always safe. You just share information, like simple project. But yeah, sharing too much information about your company or yourself can also be very damaging. Yeah, there is this balance that needs to be done. So, thank you very much, Hannah, for this amazing episode and the first one again. And I really liked it. And having you here is for me a privilege because all your experience and all the technical work that I have seen already from you, it's just very impressive. Like, you are an impressive person. Uh, I'm looking forward to stay in touch with you and hear more about the Android Security Research Playbook, and also to the definitely the drone hacking playbook that I'm going to deep dive into. Is there also a way for people to contribute to these two projects, by the way?
Great question. So we are exploring more of how we want to be involved with the community, especially we also have our GitHub repo as well under Dark Wolf Labs. And so if you have an idea, if you want to get involved, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than willing to have a conversation about it, and we can go from there.
Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end. I hope you guys like this session. Thank you very much, Hannah, for being here with us, and see you very soon.
Take care. Keep being awesome.